Another reason why I left religion, the church, Christianity, and fundamentalism is that the church villainizes and denies female sexuality. Now, for those who grew up in churches that had an equal balance of male and female sexual education with positive representation and no villainization or shaming occurred, you are a very lucky person. For the majority of people who grow up like myself in very fundamentalist, Southern Baptist, Calvinistic, very extreme forms of Christianity, the structure of education, sermons, and discussions are always focused, at least where I attended, on male sexuality. I never heard one sermon or attended any Sunday school that ever talked about female sexuality by itself without adhering to another person. When I heard about female sexuality, which is very extremely rare, but when I did, it was always within the context of marriage, and it always had to adhere to very gender role expectations, and it was always a response to male sexuality. I never heard just female discussion. It always tied in to men. Back a long time ago, female sexuality was one of the most feared topics in political circles. The worst kind of threat is an independent, sexually adventurous woman who knows what she wants and doesn't settle. You look at society, especially in the United States, women who dress, behave, and pursue what they want are villainized. How many female celebrities have been shamed due to dressing the way they like to dress? They're independent, they're sexually active, they're usually villainized. People like Britney Spears. Because when you live under the patriarchy, anything that isn't centered around men, men's will, men's desires, men's sexuality is a threat, which is why they created marriage, divorce, family, and moral rules. They had to control female sexuality by erasing it, denying it, downplaying it, and controlling it. You look at Planned Parenthood, anti-abortion followers. When you are in groups that actively work for or against women's autonomy, you are causing the death, the harm, and the subjection of more than half of the planet. More than 50% of people on this planet are women or identify as women, whether as cis, transgender, non-binary. Anyone who votes in favor of anything that controls women's sexuality in a way that isn't controlled with men. If we're not controlling how men have kids, we shouldn't be controlling how women have kids. As long as the medical field has ethics, that is the only thing that should determine whether or not something is right or wrong for somebody. Women's sexuality is so infantilized. If a man goes in for a hysterectomy, he's in and out within 6 weeks. Women sometimes have to fight up to 6 years and see dozens of gynecologists, specialists, and surgeons before they can even pass a psych eval to make sure that they're a candidate to have their tubes tied. Women have to go through so many hoops that men don't even have to look at or even perform to get the basics of what men take for granted. Since Donald Trump became president, hysterectomies and tube tying has gone up over 90%. If women can't control after pregnancy, they're going to start controlling before pregnancy. They're going to be abstinent, they're going to tie their tubes, they're going to require prophylaxis, they're going to have birth control. They're going to do everything they can to take back their autonomy that men and women who want to hold white privilege and adhere to what I call messed up morality, they have to take back their autonomy by taking away any chance of getting pregnant, which I think is very responsible. If you don't want to be pregnant, take away as much of a percentage that so you can't get pregnant. When we put the weight of everything on women for pregnancy, just good bodily health, I read a statistic online that only 1 out of 3 heterosexual men come prepared for sex, either with some form of birth control, protection, whatever you want to call it. 1 out of 3. And that's about the same statistic as them going in and being tested for every form of STI. And women have always felt the brunt of controlling or being a gatekeeper. Women have to be the gatekeeper of their own sexualities because nobody else will care. No one else will protect them. And nobody else, whether they're dating or hooking up, is going to care as much about their health as they do. Women have to fight, pressure, and refuse in order to maintain good health. Not all men, but a good significant part pressure women to do things that are not safe without protection. And women have to be in control of their own birth control. They have to be in charge of everything when it comes to reproduction because the majority of heterosexual men out there won't. And that's not to villainize heterosexual men in any way, but those are the statistics according to people who record STI data. And you have to know how your group thinks. And women have to be gatekeepers for their own satisfaction and happiness because society won't, their peers won't, and their partner probably won't either. Women have to be in charge of their own safety, their own health, their own happiness, because nobody else in DC, in their home, or in their friend group will probably help them. Luckily, there's a lot of women out there that do have good support systems and wisely choose partners who don't have to be told about protection and don't push boundaries. The church has always villainized anything that includes independence, autonomy for women. You look at the different denominations